Hi, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager.
And I'm Brian Michael.
You saw no clips at the top of the show because this is our best of 2019 episode. And if you're wondering why we're doing this in the middle of 2020, well, some of you might have heard this little thing called the COVID-19 pandemic kind of put a wrench in our plans back in March, which is when we usually tape our best of 2019 because we wait for all the critically acclaimed movies to trickle over to Salem. And so this episode was delayed a little bit, but that's great because Brian and I have definitely feel very, I'm sure, confident about our lists this year. So we're going to do things a little differently this year. This episode is devoted to our films number 10 through 6. And then the next episode you'll see in a few weeks will be the big number 1 through 5. So let's just launch right into it, shall we? With my number 10 film, which is The Lighthouse by director Robert Eggers. Now, this film is from the director who previously did the horror movie The Witch, and this is not a horror movie, but it is horrific, and it is a very weird movie. It featured one of the greatest performances of the year by Willem Dafoe, who was sadly overlooked for his performance when it came to Oscar time, but he was recognized at the Independent Spirit Awards, which was great. This is a very odd movie. It's not going to be for everybody. It's shot in a old-fashioned looking black and white. It's two grumbly guys stuck in a lighthouse together with soliloquies and lots of fighting and lots of water. But I just loved how idiosyncratic and completely different this film was.
Brian? I wanted to squeeze this into my top 10 so badly, and I wasn't able to give it a chance.
Oh, it didn't make your top 10?
It made it in my top 20. I think I had like 20 films and 4-star reviews.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we get to spend a little more time talking about the films this time, right?
Yes, and that's what's really nice. But that really teleports you to a time and place in that film. Whether how accurate they try to make it as accurate as possible, but I think it's rather fantastical. It's a wonderful and amazing journey, and Robert Pattinson just proves what no one saw coming, that he is just an actor to be watched and reckoned with. And I'm really excited to see his next movie, which is a Batman movie. Very excited about.
Yeah, who would have guessed the 2 stars of Twilight would go on to be some of the most interesting actors of their generation, picking different types of roles, working with really acclaimed directors. So this is actually one of many films from Robert Pattinson in recent years that I have really enjoyed, and I never thought I would say that. So, and he's able to hold his own with Willem Dafoe, which is not an easy thing to do.
So yeah, he's wanted to try something that's more challenging, and that's what's really interesting. He's done the main blockbuster movies, and so now he wants to try something more challenging, and that's really what finds interesting about a lot of actors. But speaking of Batman, my number 10, Angela just loves comic book movies so much, so I had to put Avengers Endgame in here.
Oh God!
This is by director Anthony and Joe Russo, who had worked in comedy, two of my favorite comedy shows of all time, of Community and Arrested Development. It really shows because they know a well-written script and they know great timing, and that comic timing works really well for action as well. The special effects, it's a big, huge, I mean, this is the biggest film of last year, and it didn't disappoint whatsoever. The special effects are absolutely fantastic. All of the original Avengers get their own story here. Robert Downey Jr.'s arc comes to a beautiful I Am Iron Man close. Chris Hemsworth gets to prove to everyone that he is absolutely hilarious and should be in more comedies. He should just be in more comedies. And I watched it again last night, in fact. It's one of those movies you can just put on the background and just kind of watch, and then I get pulled into it. And I cheer every time I hear Avengers Assemble, and that when Mjolnir snaps into the hands of Cap, always gives me chills. And in the theater, I actually literally cheered. Thanos, easily the best comic book villain, one of the best comic book villains, which isn't too hard to say, but one of the best villains in cinema of recent years that I really enjoyed. The pacing of the first hour is just a full mourning of the losses that happened in Infinity Wars. And this is just a big, huge accomplishment of 22 or 23 film series coming to a close. Think of how many James Bond movies they've done, and they never really kind of closed the gap on those, or really can put a stopgap unless they change Bond. The Harry Potter movies, there was like 9 of those or so. And Star Wars, we just can't even get the film series off the ground. They can't even do a trilogy at this point in time. And here's a 22-game film series that really just shows an amazing arc. And Infinity Wars was my top 10 last year in the same spot. I just had to put these in there because these were just, I had so much fun. It was just big popcorn fun. But it's a lot deeper than that as well. But you'll never see it, Angela, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that other than, do you really think it will be the end? Because that would be awesome.
Well, no,
But
there's
it
going to be
won't.
more, but it's a continuation. This is the end of those stories and of end of those actors playing those characters. So it's big. Now we're going to be changing. They're going to be handing the guard off to somebody else, and that's going to be really interesting to see if the Russos continue too, and to give it to some another small independent filmmakers to make these big blockbuster films. But as always, check out our reviews of these films when we originally did them, for the most part, on realfilmsnobs.com. Of course, Angela and I are just starting on Letterboxd, so you might look for us there, but don't get too excited yet. We're working on it. And this is always hard to do, these top 10s, because we've been talking about these movies all year long, and I feel kind of exhausted. I had to pull myself back into getting excited about these films, because I feel like, well, it's been like a year for some of them. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
So what's your number 9?
Several of these I saw earlier in 2019, so that makes it a struggle.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to my number 9, which is a documentary. And this film is called Honeyland. This was nominated for an Academy Award. The Academy Awards, actually, this last year, the documentary category was really, really strong. And they've always never done a good job on that category. So that was a real highlight, I think. And this film just really stuck with me. When I first saw it, I wasn't sure it was actually going to make my top 10 or even be a 4-star film right when I first saw it. But the more I kept thinking about it and then telling people about it and then telling people, you have to see this movie, I realized, oh, I really like this movie. In fact, I just talked to my parents and even got them to see it, and they don't even love documentaries very much. So even if you're not a fan of that genre, this is definitely a film to see. Bryan and I watched this together. And in fact, it's so not like a documentary in some ways that I forgot how long into it Bryan turned to me and was like, "Are you sure this is a documentary? How is it possible this filmmaker just happened to be here?" So the story is there's a woman who lives in a very rural area of Macedonia with her elderly mother, and she is a master beekeeper. And one day, a caravan of people, a family, sort of like the neighbors from hell, you might say, arrive and move in next door to her and start to wreak havoc not only on her life but her way of life, and also on the ecology and the environment around them. So it's a bit of an environmental warning, really, but you get so much into the characters that's what's really interesting. This woman, her mother, and then the family next door. There's just so many layers to this movie.
Yeah, it feels very much like a film. I mean, because of the way that they made it. Yeah, it really feels like a made-up story there. It's beautifully shot. Talk about catching lightning in a bottle. This is a beautiful film. And there's so many things that are the foreshadowing of what she's talking about. You can't do this with the bees. You can't do this. And she's very kind to these people and trying to teach them the way. And then some people will get too greedy, and then there's pressure applied, and then things happen. And you just see this ecosystem, with bees especially, and the world's ecosystem just really becoming how frail and fragile that can be when you mistreat it and don't know what you're doing. And so that education is so important. And so many times we just kept crying along with it, going, "What are you doing? No." So yeah, a beautiful film, and definitely one to find.
And it made even more fun. I miss our movie viewings together, Bryan, by your commentary at points, because I know the family that moved in next door were driving you crazy, as they would anyone. But I think you made some sort of comment at one point, like, "I think I ran into these people at the store once, these kids."
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it was really bad. But yeah, she's trying to be very neighborly, and so it starts off being really friendly to them and trying to help them, and that does not serve her well. So yeah, it's also a beautiful looking film. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. So we'll move on to my number 9, which is Pain and Glory by Pedro Almodovar. And again, as usual, it's a very personal film. A lot of times you get to see directors making, telling stories that aren't necessarily as close to home, or but this is something that you can tell where he was in a story, and it was from a certain point in his life. You can see that the loving details that are made by a filmmaker, because this is made with care. And Antonio Banderas was nominated, who was a phenomenal, wonderful performance. And of course, Penelope Cruz, who just is so breathtaking. And she can breathtaking be a word? Because she's even more breathtaking in his films, because he knows how to lovingly show her without exploiting her. It's not the male gaze we're looking at. We're looking at her as she's playing his mother, so to speak. And if you were going to have, you know, like I say, you see your mother as the most beautiful person in the world, so why wouldn't you have Penelope Cruz play her? And it's a wonderful, beautiful performance. The cinematography by Jose Luis Alcaine, I'm going to hopefully pronounce that correctly, who's worked on a number of Almodovar movies, which are always look amazing, but this film makes cave living beautiful and amazing.
Yeah.
To the point where we were like,
Yeah.
you can live in a cave and it looks like that? I want to live in a cave with Penelope. Well, I live anywhere with Penelope Cruz. But I mean, but in like these caves are just hypnotic and so beautiful, and you know, and they become a home. Again, this is a very personal film. And you know, the costume designs in his films, I mentioned this in the original review, his costume designs are so unique because when they're flashing the flashbacks of the cave in the current time, it's a kind of a 60s kind of mod looking, and you can tell it's a synthetic material, but they look so cool, and the clashing of patterns, but somehow in his films, they just work. And so, you know, he's just got a distinct look, he's got a distinct story, and he's just, I mean, I'm not saying anything new, he's an amazing filmmaker, but I love seeing that. And just those little touches of a young boy who's gay, seeing, you know, just seeing someone in a certain light that you kind of have that moment of, oh, that you may not realize now, but 20 years from now, when he looks back and goes, oh, that was the moment. And
Right. I loved
that.
that scene.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Yes. And I'm going to be talking about that film a little bit later.
Okay.
Actually, I might be talking about that film on a different episode. We'll see. So I'm not used to this dividing up our top 10 part. Okay, so yeah, I love this movie as well, and so I definitely have a lot to say about it. So we'll move on to my number 8 film, which is Birds of Passage, and this fits that category, Bryan, that you mentioned earlier, when I saw really pretty early in 2019, and it really stayed with me. I saw it at our local art house theater, and there was like, you know, only a handful of people in the theater with me, and it just blew me away. Another one that's just visually amazing. It's by the directors Cristina Gallego. Oh boy, I'm gonna butcher all the names here. You know what? I'm just gonna say it's by the directors who also did Embrace of the Serpent, another film I love and I thought was really underrated and also made one of my best of the year lists. So, and this one is about a family in Mexico, and they kind of have a bit of a feud going on with another family. And before you know it, all heck breaks loose, and it's really complicated. There's sort of these warring groups, and there's drugs involved, but then there's also this really like familial, it's almost sort of like a Godfather movie in a way. There's these kind of like elements of family loyalty and who's loyal to who and who's going up against someone else, all shot against some of the most amazing vistas, like epic type of vistas. We actually did an episode recently about epics, and I put the way this film looks in that category. Did you get a chance to see it?
Yeah. Actually, that one ended up being on HBO now, whatever the heck it's called. Still waiting for HBO Max. Please work out with Roku, get this done. But yeah, the look of that film, yeah, this is what really are absolutely stunning and really pull you in. It's a fantastic story, and you know, that might be the one I'm thinking. A lot of them got quite a critical acclaim, I think, on my list, and stuff got seen by people. That's one that just didn't. I don't think anyone really knows of that film, and it's just kind of hidden. Even though it's sitting on HBO, it's just kind of a little hidden gem that's really one that you got to seek out. If there's anyone on the list, let me look at the rest of my list. Yeah, that's, well, maybe another one, but that's another small film, a little gem to seek out and find. If they're, you know, learn anything from our top 10 list, that would be.
It doesn't look like a small film though. The way it's shot, it looks like, you know, it's got this huge budget. And so that's what was amazing to me when I started watching. I was like, holy smokes, these filmmakers. Embrace of the Serpent also had a super unusual look. That one was black and white, and this one's just big, bold color. They definitely have a really striking visual style. And I'm just really excited to see what they continue to do.
Move on to my number 8.
Sure.
My number 8 is a film that I pushed onto a lot of people because I'm not always able to get everyone to see a lot of the films, and this one was readily on Hulu, and so I told everyone to go see the Biggest Little Farm. It's my favorite documentary of the year.
Oh.
I will admit that it's very, you know, it just touched my heart the entire way, all the way through this. It's a couple that just want to start a farm, and just not a commercial farm, and just kind of do things the way that you know, naturally, as best they can. I'm not saying I haven't looked into this thing. I don't know if they use any chemicals or whichever, but it was really as a self-sustaining farm. That's the word I'm looking for. And I really enjoyed this because here's the people that put out a goal and really try to accomplish their dreams. I don't know the kind of money it takes to do something like this, but it's just a wonderful story. I really get pulled into, the characters and the animals, they name them, and when things happen, I really got pulled into this story. If I would be a vegetarian, if you put the pictures and names of the animals on the packages of meat, because I could not do it. There's no way I could do it.
I don't think they would do that, Bryan. That would defeat the purpose of them selling the product. So.
Exactly. But I just loved how this film just tells the story as it goes right along. It's a 7-year period, I believe. And there's a lot of ups and downs and great successes, but they just showed how this works and how you can do this, and how nature, when you have a problem with a lot of ducks poop, there's things that you can do. You have problems with snails, well, then you bring in the ducks will eat the snails, but there's a lot of duck poop, but the duck poop works as fertilizer. I mean, there's just the circle of life that I just absolutely loved. And he just tried to step back, the couple tried to step back and look at the big picture and try to solve these problems as naturally as they possibly can without having to use, chemicals or guns when there's predators. I just love this. And I've watched it 2 or 3 different times. I love this movie.
Is it because it's so feel good? I'm surprised that you liked it more than Honeyland.
It really is. And I just got pulled into that. The frustration of probably The Family Next Door. It was still a 4-star film for me, but it was the frustration of The Family Next Door. This one I just lovingly just fell right into. Like I said, it's one I can easily recommend that I know a lot of people would have an easier time falling into and liking and enjoying. So it's one you can kind of share with anyone.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I didn't love it as much as you did. I've seen, a few of these. I felt like I'd seen movies like this before, sort of the kind of look at family farming and agriculture. So maybe that was why it didn't take me as much by surprise. Whereas something like Honeyland, I thought, well, actually that one took me really by surprise, because I thought it was just going to be like, and here is the problem with the bees in the world, and the bees are facing extinction. I thought it was going to be like an educational documentary. And then I thought, oh, no, this is not going where I thought it would. So Biggest Little Farm went a little bit more where I thought it would. So sometimes the element of surprise.
One, ostracize the other. It's just potato. It's just personal preference.
Yeah, I'm just saying in terms of documentaries. So, and we each only had one documentary in our top 10. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, even though it was actually, I think, a pretty good year for documentaries. There were definitely other ones I gave 4 stars to, like For Samo is one, which, is still haunting me. But yeah, in terms of making your top 10, those definitely. So we'll move on to my number 7 film, which is The Irishman by Martin Scorsese. And boy, this was a
what?
Are you surprised that it's only number 7? What?
A Scorsese movie in your top 10? Oh my God.
Well, that's happened before, just not as much with recent years. But yeah, I love Scorsese films. I just, I don't love everything he does like you do. Like Wolf of Wall Street, I didn't like. But this film I loved. And I'll tell you, the length did not bother me at all. We saw it in the theater and I loved every minute of it. I've rewatched parts of it since then just to kind of refresh my memory before this episode. And it just really holds up. It's such an elegiac film. It's a touching ode to getting older. It's a little bit of a film. Boy, I'm not selling this well. It's a film about death and memory and getting old. And boy, and it's a great character study. It is a little bit of a downer, I'll be honest, but it takes its time to really develop the characters and tell the story that it wants to tell. And I really appreciated that. And it's not just a quote unquote gangster movie. I get so tired of people saying that about Scorsese movies in general, but this one definitely isn't. It's really, that's just the backdrop to what's going on here. This is really about looking back at your life and having regrets and wondering what choices you could have made and done things differently. And to me, that made it very touching. I was surprised how much I was moved by this.
Yeah, we were prepared for bathroom breaks and how to figure that out because it was going to be 3 hours long in the theater, and we didn't at all. And afterwards, It was like, oh, I didn't even go. Oh my gosh. No. Yeah, it really flies by. It's an amazing film. It's big, long. It's a lot of special effects. Pretty much just like an Avengers movie.
Yeah, but Thanos comes in at some point and battles it out with Robert De Niro, right?
Yeah. Well, great subtlety shown here with Al Pacino. Nice seeing him act again, and De Niro, and Joe Pesci was phenomenal as a very quiet and subdued character instead of being something big and grand, which we kind of expected. Speaking of which, my number 7 is Little Women, which is nothing like that. This is Greta Gerwig. The amazing thing about this is just watching an artist blossom and bloom and grow. Greta Gerwig, who's seen as an actress and has become a writer and then is now a filmmaker. And I enjoyed Lady Bird, but I just thought the leaps and bounds from Lady Bird to Little Women was just amazing. Maybe the people that she found the right people to work with. Maybe it was a money budget thing. Maybe it was I don't know. But this is a filmmaker by a film by a filmmaker that I'm really looking forward to seeing more from now. I just loved how her script that she wrote uses flashbacks and the juxtaposition that they're used, that some end in a happy ending and some end in a sad, that they use kind of the same setups that I really enjoyed there. The performances by Saoirse Ronan, Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh had an amazing year with Midsummer, as well as that wrestling movie, Wrestling with My Family, whatever, which she was actually really good in. But Saoirse Ronan here is, I hope never kind of, I want her to win an Academy Award, but I don't want her to win one anytime soon, because I like her hungry and I like her really just putting together these are Oscar bait performances, but she's so darn good in them. And I loved her as Joe. And of course, Timothée Chalamet, who just plays, I think he's going to be just Timothée Chalamet. And he's just kind of cute and charming with his little hair that he kind of pulls out of his face. And it just works for him. And I just, just don't do too many roles a year. So we just kind of enjoy that Hugh Grant type performance, and maybe he'll evolve. But I enjoyed him in this as well. It just was a film I did not expect to enjoy as much. And we're just really blown away.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I did not enjoy it as much as you. Folks can look back on our original review, but I had more criticisms of it. I still love the 1990s version better. I had some issues with some of the casting, primarily Emma Watson. I did think Saoirse Ronan did a good job. I thought Florence Pugh stole the movie, though, and has really become an actress to watch in multiple movies now, where she's just continued to wow me. And one of the big things I loved about this movie was the look of it. The cinematography, it was shot on film, is just gorgeous. It's just got these deep, rich hues, and the lighting, it's just gorgeous. So definitely a step up, I thought, for Greta Gerwig. Excited to see what she does next.
Yeah.
So I'll move on to my number 6 film, which I know Bryan did not like. The Last Black Man in San Francisco, film that just absolutely blew me away when I saw it. Continues to have so much relevance today. It's a film about trauma, about rootlessness, and about not being able to find a home, the African-American experience. And I thought it was a directorial debut by Joe Talbot, and I thought this movie was amazing. One of our friends, Bryan Knoll, I know it was his number 1 of the year, and I just continue to think about this movie, especially in recent weeks. And I think it has more relevance than ever, and has had relevance for a very long time. But I just loved the way it was so understated. I think one of the issues you had with it is it was maybe too understated for you. It's definitely not a Spike Lee type of movie. For the most part, there's not a lot of self-aggrandizing, and there's not a lot of big action. So if that's your type of movie, you probably won't like this one. But I loved it.
No, it started out as a Spike Lee movie, and I was really excited by that. And I thought, okay, cool, here we go. As a new voice, let's step forward, let's go, let's be proactive, let's point some things out, and let's go. And it's just passive all the way through. And I just, after a while, I thought, is this person mentally handicapped in some way, shape, or form? What is going on? Take a stance. And all I did was just get frustrated and frustrated and frustrated, because you're seeing all of these things, they're bringing these things to light, and they're just falling over from, it just got under my skin in the wrong way. It is available on Prime, and it's in my little queue. I'm like, well, maybe someday I might just give it a second shot. Maybe
when you're in a different frame of mind, and you'll appreciate aspects of it you didn't in the theater.
Yeah, being able to know what to expect this time, and maybe just be really mellow and watch the film, I might be able to enjoy it. But I was ready for a fight, and it was not. It was just
no, it's not that kind of movie. I think if you want to see that, maybe Sorry to Bother You, although you didn't love that one either, or go back and watch Do the Right Thing or something. It's not that kind of movie, but so that's my number 6.
Yeah, I like punches in my fight, not passive. So my number 6 is Manos, directed by Alejandro. We saw this in the small theater at Salem Cinema with a very small group of people, but everyone I think came out of the movie loving this film. The cinematography by Jasper Wolf, I'm not familiar with, I haven't seen a lot of his other films, is just stunning. And of course, we were in that small theater, and that screen just really encompasses, and you really get to see every small little tiny detail. It is available on Hulu. It has been some time. I don't push that movie as much because some people I know that won't necessarily like those. My coworkers, I gotta be careful about. But it's just an absolutely amazing story, a beautiful cast. that just had performances I just thought were absolutely fantastic and incredible. And just seeing these kids who are just given this too much responsibility, just being kids and messing up, so to speak, or just doing as kids do and not getting a chance to grow and being put in this, this guerrilla army and just giving all this responsibility of watching this lady. And it just was, as this movie, you don't know what's going on at first. It just kind of slowly unfurls and you get to see the bigger picture of what's going on here. And it's just captivating and really pulls you in. And it's just not a movie you're going to forget anytime soon, obviously.
No, I also gave it 4 stars. I loved it. It's like number 11. If I could do a top 15, it would have made, it was so close. I had a hard time this year. We had a lot of great films in 2019. So, and Manos was definitely one of them. So amazing look, amazing cast, a little bit like Lord of the Flies set in maybe like South America or something. Some great performances. A director I definitely want to keep my eye on. Yeah. So I think that wraps this up for us this episode. That was our 10 through 6. Make sure to check out in a couple of weeks, or depending on when you're watching it, our next episode we'll have our numbers 1 through 5. As always, check out our website, realfilmsnobs.com. You can check us out on Twitter and on Facebook and on YouTube, and make sure to subscribe. And we're on KMUZ Radio, CCTV here in Salem, Scan TV in Silverton, and Corvallis Access Media. We'd like to thank our fantastic crew, even though they're not with us for the most part right now. Thank you to Brad for taping the show for us here, and thanks to my wonderful co-host, Bryan. And thanks to our wonderful community sponsors for continuing to support the show. As always, have a great day and great movies.